Hi everyone, it's Alexandra, and this is a quick update video on some recent happenings in the world and in the Q world. Here are some recent developments I feel warrant sharing with you all. In case you're new to my channel, I'm not political, and I'm not a Q supporter. You can find my views on Q starting at the 43-minute mark in part 3 of my Mind Game series. This video is for those of you who are watching the current events that are going on. Let's get started. First up, Ghislaine Maxwell got arrested. She's basically Epstein's boss.
If you're Maxwell, you're going to sing to reduce your sentence. She's not going to reduce it all the way because from the reporting, she was the coordinator of the sex trafficking ring. She operated the money situation. She did the recruiting. She was the one doing the grooming, the bookings. She was the one arranging the flights. And as you mentioned, she was alleged to have been participating in the sexual acts along with Epstein and the underage girls.
In other news, on June 24th of 2020, Q posted a list of missions for Anons, or those who follow Q's posts, to accomplish. Quote, "You've been selected to help serve your country. Never retreat from the battlefield," which they point out as Twitter, Facebook, and other social media. Use other platforms as a form of centralized command and control. I'm assuming they're referring to things like the Parler platform that Devin Nunes has promoted. Pause the video to read the full Q posts. I'm just going to read the highlights. Mission 1. Dispute or reject propaganda push through posting of research and facts. Mission 2. Support role of other digital soldiers. One falls, another stands or rises. Mission 3. Guide or awaken others through use of facts and memes. Decouple MSDNC, which is Q terminology for MSNBC, control of info stream. Ask counter questions to initiate thought versus repeat or echo of propaganda. Mission 4 is learn the use of camouflage digitally. Primary account suspended or terminated, use of secondary. Mission 5, identify strengths and weaknesses, personal and designated targets, regarding Twitter and Facebook and others. For example, meme failure to read through use of algorithm. Think Tron, MCP, master control program. Dependence on person-to-person capture, slow response time, unidentified user. What they're saying is AIs can't read memes or pictures, and will stay up longer than anything written will. This is why I have to use pictures so much and use different words like brother man for terms that would get me flagged, as well as turning comments off so I can avoid those bots. Game theory. Essentially, game theory is an interaction between multiple people in which each person's payoff is affected by the decisions others make. Information warfare. Welcome to the digital battlefield. Together, we win. Q then tells the Anons to take an oath. It's the oath elected officials, not the military, take. Almost immediately, Anon started posting videos of themselves taking the oath.
To take the oath.
I do solemnly swear that I will support
and defend the Constitution
of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office for which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
Where we go one, we go all.
Where we go one, we go all, patriots.
Where we go one, we go all.
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 With that said, digital soldiers, where we go one, we go all. Let's go.
This seems to be a deliberate exercise in shifting to a militant mindset. Right after posting the oath, Q says, "This has never been attempted." Military-civilian alliance. This military-civilian alliance started a couple of years ago when General Flynn said,
"We have an army of digital soldiers. What we are now, I call them, because this was an insurgency, folks. This was run like an insurgency. This was irregular warfare at its finest in politics. And that story will continue to be told here, but we have what we call citizen journalists. Okay? Because the journalists that we have in our media did a disservice to themselves, actually more than they did to this country. They did a disservice to themselves because they displayed an arrogance that is unprecedented. And so the American people decided to take over the idea of information. They took over the idea of information, and they did it through social media.
On June 26th of 2020, 2 days after Q posted the oath, General Flynn changed his Twitter banner to include the hashtag #TakeTheOath. By doing this, Flynn acknowledged that he is part of the Q team. The Western Journal published an op-ed article by General Flynn on June 29th of 2020 with the headline, "Exclusive from General Flynn. If we don't act, 2% of the people are about to control the other 98%. The article says, "We must not allow a small percentage of the powerful to overtake our position on America's battlefield." Another correlation to the Q call to action on the digital battlefield. The article wraps up with, "In war, as in life, most failure comes from inaction. We face a pivotal moment that can change the course of history of our nation." This whole article highlights the Q talking points, which are the alliance points, and the opposite or the inversion of the cabal. You can read the full article in the link I've left in the description below. General Flynn is not the only one who has been identified as being aligned with Q. On June 20th, Eric Trump posted and later deleted this picture on Instagram of an American flag with a Q in the middle, the day of President Trump's Tulsa rally. Anons were quick to notice that this, quote, confirmation, as they call it, came exactly 2 years to the day, June 20th, from the post where Q said to look for more direct confirmations. Another came on June 26th when Q said Dan is to blame for a 3-second delay between the president's tweets and Q's post. Q is referring to Dan Scavino, the official social media director for the White House. For the first time, these confirmations acknowledge that at least 3 people, General Flynn, Eric Trump, and Dan Scavino, are on the Q team with President Trump, and that they're all working together. While the cabal media was focused on dividing the country, Q reminded them to, quote, have faith in humanity, capital humanity, have faith in yourself, don't let the media control you, incite division and hatred for one another by use of propaganda and fear-mongering, dogma, a point of view or tenet put forth as authoritative without adequate grounds. Again, they're against the mainstream or cabal narrative. Q-Drop 4489 said, all assets deployed to prevent you from finding out about their corruption. We've talked before about occult initiation and how they would often bury or put an initiate in darkness for a prescribed length of time, mimicking death, to then be brought back to life into the, quote, light. What the world is going through is the same thing, a massive initiation ritual from dark to light. Regarding the Brothermanic initiation of dark to light, Brotherman Albert Mackey writes, the initiation was the lesson of death. The full fruition or autopsy, the reception of light, was the lesson of regeneration or resurrection. In mind control programming, the lesson of caterpillar to butterfly or death to life is also a prominent feature. Recently, the tone has been changing in our own worldwide initiation of just trying to get through it.
No one ever thought a couple of months ago that they would be in line to pick up food from local food banks because they didn't have enough money to buy groceries for their families.
To hope for a new tomorrow.
What will be the first thing you do as soon as you're able? At IKEA, we wondered that too. We found that people didn't say catching a new movie or going on a trip. It was to simply be with loved ones. Having that first hug, sharing that first meal together, and showing off the good news. We know you can't wait to welcome people back into your home, and neither can we. Let's get ready for what's next.
And remember this, there's a crack in everything for a reason. How else can the light get in?
Back to life, back to reality, back to life.
A different world will be emerging back into.
So I feel like, yes, we are going to be going back. We will be emerging back into the world again like butterflies. But in the meantime...
The ritualistic kneeling is a part of this. It was a whole ritual. In the bigger picture, what I see happening is this is the cover for a controlled demolition of the world's economy. The only way to usher in a new one.
Why do we have to kill the economy to save lives?
What that looks like is anyone's guess, especially in application. It's hard to prepare for so many unknown variables. Roseanne Barr went on a rant on June 19th of 2020. She is a change agent, so take what she says with a grain of salt. Roseanne knows about Q. This article from 2018 says, in November, Barr tweeted, "Who is Q?" The Daily Beast reported. The actress added hours later, "Tell QAnon to DM me in the next 24 hours."
Today, June 19th, which is, a historical day, Juneteenth. Well, if we were really going to get into history and stuff, and the sinking of the Titanic and, the implementation of the Federal Reserve and all of that stuff that was done to destroy our country and to put us under debt slavery. Trump is the man. He's going to do it all. And people don't even know it. This is the Jubilee year. And Jubilee means
there you go,
canceling all debts. And that's where I think that everybody says it's going to be biblical. Well, that's what it means. That the Jubilee year means according to the Bible, according to Torah, that you're supposed to cancel people's debts every 7 years. And if we were really a religious and biblical based culture, that's what we would be doing. And I do think that that's what's going to happen. I think people are going to be able to buy houses again. I think people will be out of debt. I really think that that's coming. And I think that's why the deep state is so panicked and wants to get rid of Trump, because they hold our debt, and that's how they get rich. And they're like,
That's right.
how dare this guy? How dare this guy remove our debt slaves?
Many in the Q community seem to be eagerly awaiting a debt jubilee. But what I'm more concerned with is the hope for a quantum financial reset that has already been known for the past 2 decades or so as NESARA. The acronym stands for the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. It's the American version of the financial system that is supposedly going to be implemented before the worldwide financial reset called GESARA. I doubt it will even be called NESARA and GESARA when this new financial system happens, but this is a good reference to start with and keep tabs on. Like this tweet from June 28th shows, airplane pointing toward flags, see the letters NESAR as in NESARA, and Trump looking the other direction as if something is incoming. I don't know. We'll see. The most bizarre part of all of this is that a lot of the NESARA requirements have already been fulfilled. This is a compiled list from different sources who all promote NESARA, which originated with the New Age, which I caution against in my videos. And if you'll remember from my previous videos, the New Age is an integral part of the overall, quote, plan of the occultists. NESARA's origins trace back to Saint Germain. Will this financial reset be what is commonly called NESARA to a T? Probably not, but I don't know. I just want to show you what I've found regarding what has already been implemented. Some, but not all, of the points of NESARA law have already been completed. Let's take a look at them one at a time. The first 2 points should actually come last, as they can't be implemented until all the other points are. Number 3 calls for abolishing the IRS. This hasn't happened yet, but the IRS is temporarily closed and pushing back the tax filing deadline to July 15, which may be moved into October because of the pandemic. It remains to be seen if employees will be transferred to the national sales tax area within the U.S. Treasury when they return to work. It's possible, since the IRS is the largest bureau in the U.S. Treasury. These points are not fully accomplished yet and may also have to wait until the Federal Reserve is completely under the control of the Treasury. Same with point number 4. Okay, number 5 increases benefits to senior citizens. This one was completed with President Trump's executive order from October of 2019. Number 6 returns constitutional law to all courts and legal matters. This is currently being accomplished. According to whitehouse.gov, President Trump is appointing a historic number of federal judges to uphold our Constitution as written. On June 24th of 2020, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announced that this is complete.
Today, the Senate will have confirmed 200 of President Trump's nominees to lifetime appointments on the federal bench.
And the United States Department of Justice confirms the requirement that these judges will uphold the Constitution. Number 7 says NESARA reinstates the original title of nobility amendment. The title of nobility amendment was proposed before the War of 1812 and said, quote, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States, and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. It would have been the 13th Amendment, but it was never ratified by Congress. However, similar wording is still in the Constitution and is known only as the Foreign Emoluments Clause, or Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present emolument, meaning a fee or payment, office or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. This could possibly result in many elected officials losing their U.S. citizenship due to their corrupt dealings with many foreign governments. This has not been implemented yet. Side note, the Democrats tried to sue President Trump saying he was in violation of the Emoluments Clause, but the judge dismissed the case this past February. Number 8 says it establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after NESARA's announcement. The interim government will cancel all national emergencies and return us back to constitutional law. Since NESARA has not been announced, this one obviously has not been implemented either. And remember guys, this is all up in the air and just part of the overall reset. I'm sure there's plenty of requirements we don't know, and some of these may not even be necessary, so be careful not to take this all as set in stone. What we end up with might look different from what NESARA is predicting, but it's hard to know. I just want to point out Q writes that, quote, this is not another 4-year election. So I guess we'll see. Number 9 monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities of special interest groups. This one has been accomplished. Q recently posted about this in Drop 4446. That shows a tweet from the NSA and says, "We began the ability for us to defend the presidential elections not today, not 6 months from now. We began it the day after the midterm elections." Then Q says, "What happens when Ds can no longer cheat electronically? Push vote by mail?" Interestingly, the next day, Q reposted the same NSA tweet but added what, quote, event was necessary to provide cover for push. This seems to imply that all we've been through with this pandemic was planned by the cabal in order to have mail-in voting, since they allegedly can't cheat electronically anymore. NESARA Point 9 has been completed. Number 10 says NESARA creates a new U.S. Treasury rainbow currency backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals, ending the bankruptcy of the United States initiated by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. There is a cryptocurrency that launched in 2017 called rainbow currency, but it's not the Treasury's currency and is most likely called that to purposefully confuse people who want to get a jump start on their NESARA money. This cryptocurrency is not a fulfillment of the requirement. The new currency will be backed by gold, silver, and precious metals. People who are following NESARA closely got very excited when they saw on June 24th when the Trump Vegas hotel posted gold is the standard, but silver linings are pretty great too. And of course, Q dropped 2619 about how gold shall destroy the Fed. Trump also likes to reiterate transition to greatness. Number 11 forbids the sale of American birth certificate records as chattel property bonds by the U.S. Department of Transportation, claims saying that the U.S. is a corporation that was formed by the Organic Act of 1871, which incorporated Washington, D.C. as its own entity, separate from the United States. There are also claims that the Act of 1871 created a second constitution that eliminated the Republic of the United States and became the entity known as the Corporation of the United States. Either way, this NESARA requirement has not been accomplished yet. Number 12 initiates new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law, and number 13 eliminates the Federal Reserve System. During the transition period, the Federal Reserve will be allowed to operate side by side of the U.S. Treasury for 1 year in order to remove all Federal Reserve notes from the money supply. This appears to be the structure change Q mentioned in April of 2018. And again in December of 2018. On March 27th of 2020, Q seemed to have acknowledged that patriots are in control of the Federal Reserve System. They added a link to this tweet. "Rest in peace, Federal Reserve. This is huge. This scheme essentially merges the Fed and Treasury into one organization. So, meet your new Fed chairman, Donald J. Trump." So both number 12 and 13 seem to have already started. Then we have 14. Restores financial privacy. This point refers to the new quantum system. Last year, Ivanka Trump confirmed the United States quantum computers are up and running. Referencing quantum computers, this article says that quantum would improve the level of privacy and security by the laws of physics, which is never achievable from non-quantum information theoretic viewpoints. The 3 financial requirements for NESARA are apparently well on their way to being accomplished. Number 15 retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. This is part of the executive order signed by President Trump in November of 2019 that I showed you earlier. Number 16 ceases all aggressive U.S. government military actions worldwide, and 17 establishes peace throughout the world. President Trump recently told the graduating class of West Point that, quote, "We are ending the era of endless wars." If the U.S. doesn't fight wars anywhere, world peace is easier to establish. This requirement is being completed now. Number 18 releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes. This will be done when NESARA is announced, as well as number 19 that enables the release of over 6,000 patents of suppressed technologies that are being withheld from the public under the guise of national security, including free energy devices, anti-gravity, and sonic healing machines. For the last 3.5 years, President Trump has methodically been completing NESARA requirements, or whatever this new system is going to be called. What we have seen, and I'm guessing we'll continue to see, is this struggle between the swamp and the Q team worldwide. All leaders and their governments are on one side or another. The cabal, or the swamp, have been seemingly desperate to get out ahead of many alliance ideas in an attempt to usurp them. In a typical cabal move, they are imitating NESARA and also planning a, quote, great reset. The World Economic Forum is a conglomeration of cabal assets. That includes John Kerry and cabal corporations like Microsoft. They're planning a twin summit in 2021 to plan the Great Reset. Pause to read the whole thing, but it's discussing vague climate change and pandemic solutions. This has nothing to do with humanitarian projects or any of the foundational pieces of the New Age NESARA ideology. Their idea of a reset is much different than NESARA. Their version of a reset is to make the cabal strong again, including bigger government. It's the same ideology the globalists have always had. They use terms like the Great Reset to confuse people. I want to show you the World Economic Forum's clip of this reset. You can find the link in the description below. But basically it shows all of the things the cabal has done to the earth. Then it attempts to rewind time. Yet, they claim they are the ones to fix things. But they offer no solutions, they tell you nothing. It's really just a bunch of empty nonsense. I've also left a link to a Joe M's Alliance video,
Stop what you're doing,
which is a type of counter to that video I just showed, and shows the struggle of power right now and who is on which side.
A light was turned on to the vast corruption network.
One interesting nod in this video is that the Statue of Liberty loses an arm, the exact same way it does in the animated piece I Pet Goat 2 from 2012. This, quote, Great Reset is not the first time the cabal has tried to get out in front of an alliance idea, like the flop of capitalism from the UN, which is one of the biggest organizations. So sorry I can't say that. Or like Facebook trying to popularize their cryptocurrency Libra, cabal agent Snowden, the fake site Glom's Calling made by cabal disinfo agents to try and discredit the Q movement, the anonymous movement is cabal, and a very interesting piece of disinfo came about around the 2016 election, an all-white V for Vendetta character promising prosperity and peace to the world in its own political party called the Humanity Party. This was the cabal's first attempt to muddy the waters before the alliance's Q movement began. The latest spoon-feeder agent is this self-obsessed and self-professed, quote, king, Joseph Gregory Hallett, who speaks like a programmed multiple with implanted memories. Earlier this year, social media went crazy, claiming that the Queen had abdicated the throne when the royal coat of arms from Buckingham Palace gates was missing. A new conspiracy started when this photoshopped picture started circulating, claiming that England had a new king. But the British news had reported that a delivery truck had backed into the coat of arms and knocked off the unicorn, which was the symbol of Scotland. The crest is still being repaired. He's using a photoshopped image as a banner. His Twitter feed is full of narcissistic and self-indulgent posts, like one where he thanks his, quote, digital knights and dames. This was obviously an attempt to copy Q's digital soldiers, just without any real substance. He claims to be the Messiah and the new King of England. He also adds some hashtags that say Aranga, with the picture showing Aranga awakening, another attempt to copy Q's Great Awakening. He also posts really cheesy New Age type, quote, prayers. His mother said that when he was in college, he was in a commune run by who was put in prison, and that there were other there as well.
When he was at university in Auckland, he lived in a commune.
Yeah.
When the guy who ran the commune was eventually put in prison for pedophilia. You know, like he was then friends with people who were pedophiles.
Yeah, I understand.
So he's got to be in his bonnet about that.
I've left the link below. There is just no substance to any of his claims, and the entire conspiracy has the marks of the cabal all over it. At best, this man is a mind-control programmed slave, considering his connections to these people, and at worst, he's a self-obsessed con man. I suspect the hype will die down as quickly as it came. I'm going to add one more thing here. We know the cabal side. We know the alliance side. But is this really as black and white as it seems? Or is it all the result of a blueprint, the plan of a fallen, quote, architect, so to speak? Recall for a moment what we discussed in Mind Game Part 3, the law of polarity, and how the Bible tells us our enemy, Lucifer, Satan, the dragon, that old serpent, is the power behind both of these sides, the dark and the so-called light. He uses both to accomplish his goals. The highest level occultists know that both sides of the plan use Hegelian dialectics to create change, to steer events or humanity in the way they want it to go. These are essentially magicians who manipulate forces and circumstances to bend to their will, using force, money, power, or principalities to accomplish it. And in that vein, like magic tricks, in order to create illusions, magicians present one reality to their audience while concealing another. That they are secretly performing actions that make their magic tricks work. The whole point is to shift your attention while the real thing is happening in secret. I can't help but feel like that's exactly what this is. The pandemic is the cover for the economic collapse and reset. On a bigger picture, the cabal and their media talking points that fit into the pandemic box are the spotlight of attention, of where your attention is specifically being focused. Look at this hand. Don't pay attention to the other. The cabal is usually loud and produces a lot of fear, which we've all gotten accustomed to, especially in the last decade or so, which is actually very predictable. Science calls this mental models. Human brains are drawn to symmetry and patterns, as in routines. The cabal way is so ingrained, most only see the cabal side of things. And when they see an alliance thing, they falsely associate it with the pattern they recognize, the cabal. That's why closely examining everything all the time, as it relates to the bigger picture, is so crucial. Our brains want to streamline, so we don't have to waste time examining every small detail. But when it comes to things like this, we have to take the extra step. People project patterns onto situations where there isn't any. This is a phenomenon called apophenia, the tendency to mistakenly perceive connections and meaning between unrelated things. The cabal looks like they're just trying to keep their corruption under wraps, but as Q's call to action suggests, this will probably fail. We've talked a lot about this power struggle in previous videos, and I think this update just shows some small steps that have happened seemingly moving us toward this economic reset. So what do we do and how do we prepare? What does it mean? I'm going to start by saying I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I do know that we're not to be afraid. We can't live in fear. No one makes good decisions when they're afraid. And we're not meant to be afraid. We're meant to keep the commandments of God and the faith in Jesus. You've probably noticed recently that coins are not being accepted due to a Federal Reserve coin shortage. Cash is not being accepted in many locations, and there's a major push for using cash apps and contactless payment.
We don't take cash.
Many places have already installed self-checkouts, as well as the use of QR codes at checkout kiosks, and replaced menus with PDFs you can get after scanning a QR code on a table at a restaurant. QR can also be used in the medical system. Almost everyone has a phone that can read QR codes, and most credit cards are contactless. A New York Times article from May of 2020 says many banks have turned the chip card into a magic wand of sorts. Now all you have to do to buy something is wave or tap your credit card, phone, or smartwatch in front of a chip-enabled reader. So that technology is already here. What we're waiting for is a new system it runs on. Contactless payments exploded in popularity in spring of 2020 when this upended how many people think about paying for things. But there's more good behind this shift than just reducing the amount of stuff you touch. Chip cards and so-called contactless credit cards have become the norm in many places overseas, as they can make it harder for thieves to steal your information compared with magnetic strip cards. For instance, mobile payments and contactless cards don't transmit your name, card number, or a 3-digit security code. All of these things are superfluous in the grand scheme of things. The technology doesn't really matter. What matters is the system it runs on. What matters are the funds we're transferring and where they are coming from. Not the method of transfer, but what we transfer itself. We're on the lookout for a new system, and I believe that when that day comes, we'll know. And I'll be here to talk about it. With all that in mind, I'm assuming the new money will obviously be all digital, along with however they will go about a debt reset. I doubt anyone will have a say in debt forgiveness because if there's no Fed, there's no debt. Who do you pay? That's not a choice, and you can't be judged for something you have no control over. What I'm concerned about are the gold-backed prosperity funds, the large amount of money supposedly paid back to humanity for the illegal taxation and inflation caused by the cabal for generations. And once America starts, the world follows, which is why noting what happens in America with this first is so important. My theory is that cash and the new currency will run alongside this new system for some time. It won't change overnight. I still feel like everyone will have some sort of choice to accept this form of gold-backed currency. Even Nasara number 13 says that if the Fed system is eliminated, the transition would operate side by side of the US Treasury for 1 year in order to remove all Federal Reserve notes from the money supply. I'm guessing that means if you don't take the new money, you can still use what you have of the old notes. But I wouldn't accept the change, as in new notes. We need to rely on each other when this goes down to help out those who have less than we do. I've bought some gift cards, and I'm sure stores will still probably honor those. Try to have some cash on hand, as most places will probably still take it for a while. This reset is a test, not a gift. I see this as Lucifer's last deception, as I do believe we are living in the end of the end times. My friend said his pastor has even encouraged his congregation to accept these prosperity funds. That pastor, as well as those who are waiting for this quantum reset, believe that it's from God. Take Proverbs 13:22 out of context, which says, quote, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous." They take this and they apply it to Nasara. This is based on the extraordinary assumption that these funds are from God, as it says the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. And it also requires that there will be time for leaving an inheritance. But remember where the money is coming from. This is not from God.
Samuel, Columbus, Shakespeare, Bacon. Enter Saint Germain, sponsor of the United States of America.
How can the New Age and those who love Jesus agree? No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Older versions say you cannot serve God and mammon, often used to describe the influence of material wealth. I encourage you all to read James chapter 4 as well. If I may be flippant for one moment, Q uses apophenia to their advantage by throwing out, "We're living in biblical times," and just the word biblical, a term too vague to apply any real meaning. So, Q, in my opinion, this reset will be biblical, specifically Revelation 13:11 through 18. Anyway, Lucifer, who is also biblical, or the devil, promises what he knows he will never deliver. Worldly goods are some of the most common examples. So-called knowledge is the other. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. We've seen Jesus be the ultimate example in this case when he was told, "All these I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve." We should follow Jesus' example. I don't feel the need personally to do anything extreme right now, like, live off the grid or something like that. My theory is when this reset takes place, I doubt the transition phase will end prior to Jesus' return. I really believe that. We're going to have to be faced with either accepting or rejecting this new financial system. We'll have more information as time goes on, so we can prepare more specifically, in my opinion. But right now, the most important thing is to not be afraid and to trust in God. Now is the time. It's hard to make decisions without knowing what's coming right around the corner, but while we still have time here, you need to seek God and focus on Him. If you took that oath, it's not too late to repent and ask for forgiveness, because it borders on idolatry. America is not God. Only follow Jesus. I'm sure I'll be back with another video or update soon. So thank you for watching this video. Take care, everyone. Bye!